Well, good afternoon, everyone. As all of you have noticed, the Senate has reached a new level of dysfunction. We now not only are not able to get votes on the Senate floor, we can't get votes in committee anymore either. Last week, the majority decided to not go forward with a couple of markups and appropriations because amendments that they didn't like might be offered, and even worse, might actually have passed. And so we find ourselves in a situation where the majority has had only 7 roll call votes since last July. The minority only 9 roll call votes since last July. The minority in the House of Representatives had 160 roll call votes. And one member of the House in the minorities had 15 roll call votes during the same period, more than Senate Democrats have had in the majority in the Senate. This is really absurd and unacceptable. There were several articles that some of you wrote this morning indicating members during their entire tenure here in the Senate had not had a roll call vote on the floor of the Senate. The entire time they've been here, not a single one of the class of 2012 has had a roll call vote since they got here. This is a level of dysfunction that should disturb the American people. We all got elected by constituents who believe that we ought to have an opportunity to offer our ideas and to get recorded votes on our proposals. It disenfranchises the vast majority of the Senate on both sides of the aisle. The sooner that can come to an end, the better. There are 2 ways it can change. Number one, the majority leader can change the way he's operating the Senate, or the American people can change the Senate. And we'll have an opportunity to see what they decide to do on that later this year. Thanks.
As a member of the Senate Finance Committee, which has jurisdiction or oversight of the IRS, and as a taxpayer, I want to speak to the troubling pattern that we're seeing at the IRS. As you all know, there is a pattern developing of evasive and misleading behavior at the IRS. The lost emails going back to 2009 to 2011 are something that I think most Americans find really mysterious. If you're an American taxpayer and you try to go to the IRS and say, I've lost my tax filings for a 2-year period, I don't think that they would give you a lot of slack or a lot of latitude when it comes to compliance. But essentially what's happened here is they're claiming they lost emails. And in the 21st century, emails just don't go missing. It just doesn't happen. There doesn't seem to be an explanation other than we don't know where they are. So they found out about this in February, informed the White House and the Treasury, but didn't inform Congress until just a couple of weeks ago. And I think that there's got to be an answer. I think the President needs to get involved. This is his administration. This is his IRS. And what they are doing in terms of misleading the Congress and the American people with regard to this issue is something that needs the top, highest level investigation by the White House. And so I hope the President will get engaged on this. As the members of the Finance Committee, we obviously want to get to the bottom of it. But as was testified today in front of a House committee, the Chief Archivist said they did not follow the law. I'll repeat that. They did not follow the law. That's what the Chief Archivist of the United States said about what the IRS is doing. So the pattern's pretty clear. They are misleading, evasive, and according to the archivist, not in compliance with the law. We believe that the American people deserve answers, and that the President needs to come forward, get personally involved in this matter, and make clear to the American people what exactly happened to the missing emails and what exactly happened when it comes to the targeting of conservative groups.
Last week, in discussions about the Keystone XL pipeline, some Democrats actually spoke in favor of the Keystone XL pipeline as a way to create jobs, put people back to work, help the economy, help us have more energy security as a country. The Senate Energy Committee voted on approval of the Keystone XL pipeline. There was a bipartisan component to that vote that passed this out of committee, but let's face it, just getting something out of committee isn't enough. You need to get it actually passed through the United States Senate and down to the White House for signature, and Harry Reid up till now has not allowed that vote. So today a number of us Senate Republicans will be on the floor of the United States Senate a little later today calling up, asking unanimous consent to see if Harry Reid will allow a vote, up or down, on the Keystone XL pipeline and what was passed out of an Energy Committee in a bipartisan way, to see if this is just show or if Democrats are serious about approving this pipeline.
Well, to follow up on what our leader was talking about, I read in a couple of reports this morning where Senator Begich, who was elected in 2008, has never had a recorded vote on an amendment on the Senate floor ever. Senator Blumenthal and Senator Coons, who were elected 2 years later, never had a vote on an amendment ever. I don't think it's because the three of them have never proposed any amendments, but you all can check that. I think it's just because the Senate has decided the work of the Senate, at least the leader of the Senate, the majority leader, has decided the work of the Senate really doesn't matter. You know, the one unique thing in the U.S. Constitution was the design of the Senate in a way that it was designed to protect minority rights, and not the rights of the minority in the Senate, but the rights of minorities in the population, so that every view is heard, every amendment that anybody wants to offer is offered, and senators have to not only have a position on those, but debate them and discuss them and come to some consensus after everybody's point of view has been put on the table. Once you stop doing that, whether it's the appropriations bills that I actually talked about here last week, where both the chairman of the committee and the ranking member of the committee were working hard to get these amendments back on the floor, so the committee had to defend what we're for. When you stop defending what you're for, you forget why you're for what you're for. When you don't allow minority views to be heard, you forget that there are other views other than just doing again whatever bill was that passed the last time it passed. And I'd like to say the bill that passed last year, but many of these bills, the last time they passed were 6 and 7 and 8 years ago, and we just keep kicking the ball forward without having the kind of debate and discussion that people deserve. And you know, I'm on the Appropriations Committee. Last week we started canceling committee markups with the stated reason, at least the well-understood reason by the majority leader, we don't want these hard amendments to be voted on even in the subcommittee and the committee of the Appropriations Committee. Not only do we not want to vote on the floor, now we don't want to vote in committee. The next thing, maybe we'll have some situation where we're not allowed to even discuss these other ideas. This is not how democracy is supposed to work. It's not how the Constitution works. And believe me, you can tell in the fabric of the government that people are no longer sure it is why we're doing what we're doing. It's important to debate these things, and you can't debate them if you're not allowed to debate them the way the Constitution and the country expect you to.
Any questions, anyone?
The majority leader said that he does not want to take up an export-import ban. What is your position on that?
I think we ought to take it up.
Do you want to pass the export-import ban?
Well, the last time it was up, I didn't support it, but I don't think that's an argument for not bringing it up. That's the whole point of what we've been talking about here. The fact that there are dissent and disagreement is not unusual. This is a country of 315 million people, a lot of different points of view. They expect us to debate these issues and vote on them here in the Senate. I have no problem whatsoever with the matter being scheduled. It should be scheduled. That's not my job. It's the job of the majority leader. But we'll turn to whatever he chooses to turn to.
Have you changed your mind on that, or would you vote against it again?
I haven't decided what I'm going to do, but I do think it's an issue that, you know, is important enough to be debated and voted on here in the Senate.
Senator, should further aid to Egypt be withheld? Do you have a reaction to the sentencing of 3 Al-Jazeera journalists in Egypt?
Honestly, I don't have an observation about that right now.
What about any of the other senators who want to comment?
Yeah, anybody else want to take a shot at it?
Like obvious lack of democratic reforms, should the U.S. still be giving money to Egypt?
Secretary of State was there this weekend, and probably had those discussions.
Is it your position that the EPA,
Sir, what do you make of Senator Cochran seeking votes from Alaska and other formerly Democratic voters in today's election?
I think it's not unusual for candidates who are running for office to be seeking votes. And my impression is that the two candidates in Mississippi are aggressively seeking votes and trying to get to the majority.
is it your position that government funding or appropriations legislation should not move forward until you're allowed to vote on your EPA amendment?
It's my opinion, as I've said over and over and over again, that members ought to be able to offer amendments and get votes both in the committee and on the floor. The particular amendment you're referring to that I'm interested in has Democratic support. Why would they be denied the opportunity to vote? That's just where we are in the Senate these days, and it needs to change. It could change in the short term by the majority deciding to operate differently, and I know there are a number of Democrats who express their frustration with the way the place is being run, or the American people could decide to put the Senate under new management next year, and if that were to happen, I assure you we won't be running it this way. Thanks.